Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is 2024 GOP presidential hopeful and former Congressman Will Hurd. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me.
Always a pleasure to be on with you.
Today, as we know, is the first GOP presidential debate. You will not be on stage, in part because you didn't meet the RNC's polling requirement. And this is part of a statement you released yesterday. You said this: the lack of transparency and confusion around the RNC's debate requirements is antithetical to the democratic process. The polling standards are arbitrary, unclear, and lack consistency. Can you break that down a little further for us?
Sure. Sure. There was 8 national polls, 8 state polls where our assessment we met the requirements, and unfortunately, details like some of these pollsters that are well-known pollsters didn't know that their poll was going to be not be used as a qualifying poll. For instance, in Iowa, there was only one poll that met those standards, and one of the groups that was not included is probably the gold standard of polling in Iowa. There was another poll that had about 1,200 people in it, and we were told there were too many Democrats and independents that wanted to vote for me, and that wasn't going to be included, which is crazy to me. I thought that the whole point of this was to grow the party, and we should be applauding growing the party and having Democrats and independents being excited. Like, if you talk about a likely voter, a likely Republican voter is someone who's willing to vote for a Republican. And so, look, this is the process. The RNC decided to cherry pick things. We're moving on. We're driving on. The debate is not a necessary requirement within winning the presidential election, and so we're taking we'll continue to take our message to the streets. It's working. In New Hampshire, I'm tied with Nikki Haley and Mike Pence, both people that have significantly higher name ID than I. I've spent significantly more money. We've hit the 40,000 threshold for donors. Sooner than most people. We're on way to go to 50,000. So if your viewers want to help us out, go to herdforamerica.com and they can donate at least $1 to help us out on this. And so we're moving on, and I wish everybody else on the stage luck.
You aren't the first contender to criticize the RNC and their requirements here. What's your message to them?
Well, my message is, like, there's probably a hands of other ways to handle this. And what's fascinating is a lot of these requirements were encouraged by Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump isn't going to show up. The fact that Donald Trump is going to surrender in Georgia the day after the debate, is part of that is to suck all the oxygen in the air and the attention away from anybody that may have had a moment in the debate. And look, there was still the issue of the pledge, right? I said I wasn't going to sign the pledge as is. My goal was to put an addendum to that, and I would have expected the RNC to accept that. And so yeah, it's unfortunate that we're in this place, and the RNC should be offended by Donald Trump's behavior, because he's basically smacking them in the face and making a mockery of the entire process. Yes, Donald Trump is ahead. He is the front runner, but he's not unbeatable.
You said this about Donald Trump. You've had pretty strong words. I've said from day one of my candidacy that I will not sign a blood oath to Donald Trump. What do you make of those contenders? And I'm specifically thinking of Chris Christie, Asa Hutchinson, Mike Pence even, who were going on that debate stage after criticizing Donald Trump more than once, but pledging they will support the eventual nominee that could be the former president.
Look, my perspective is very clear. I'm the only person in this race that has never been to meet a Donald Trump. I didn't help him get elected. I have been consistent since 2015. And so for me, I couldn't lie in order to get onto the debate stage. I'm not going to sign something that I know I wouldn't honor if Donald Trump was the nominee. That's why I was going to put an addendum to that. And so everybody else has to make their decision for themselves. But again, for me, I've been ideologically consistent for my entire political career. That's not going to change now. It's one of the things that people appreciate about me, is that I'm not afraid of Donald Trump. My opinions have been clear from 2015, and that I'm also articulating a vision for the future. And unfortunately, this takes us away from having real conversations about the future of our country. This prevents us from talking about the sweetheart deal that DOJ tried to do with Hunter Biden. This prevents us from talking about why would Joe Biden give $6 billion to the Iranians to rescue some of our American citizens that are in prison, but not bring them back home, right? Like, these are some of the crazy things that we should be having debates on. But unfortunately, we're focusing on the RNC cherry picking polls or Donald Trump's legal balance.
What do you think the future of your party is then? Because he is polling far and away. He is the talk of every headline is Donald Trump won't be at this debate. Donald Trump had 4 indictments. Donald Trump is surrendering the day after the debate, and all of these people, your fellow contenders, are pledging to support him should he be the eventual nominee. So what does the future of the GOP look like?
Well, if we elect Donald Trump as the nominee, then we're going to continue this 20-year trend of not winning the popular vote in a national popular vote. The GOP has not won that in 20 years, and if we nominate Donald Trump, we're going to give 4 more years to Joe Biden, and I actually think that's unacceptable. But I would also say that Donald Trump is not invincible. Those that think, oh, the decision is already made. The polling we should have learned since 2016 is only a snapshot in time. A lot's going to happen between now and 24 weeks from now when voting starts in Iowa. The fact that many of his co-conspirators in these cases are starting to flip, and we're getting more information and more details about how Donald Trump tried to rig the election, or he tried to rig the election, and then how he continued his efforts with keeping security documents and national security documents in his hotel. To me, like, a lot of things are going to change. And if the GOP wants to win, and if we want to address things like the crisis at the border, if we want to make sure that we win this new Cold War we're in with the Chinese government, if we want to change this trend that cost of all goods and services have increased 3 times average salaries over the last 23 years, if we want to make sure we have a thriving economy at a time when new technologies are going to upend every single industries, new technologies like artificial intelligence, then we must win. And the only way to win is to not keep preaching to the choir. We actually have to grow the choir, and that requires candidates that have the ability to attract independents and Democrats who are sick and tired of the direction of the Democratic Party.
Clearly, I think you're sick and tired of talking about Donald Trump. If you were on that debate stage tonight, what would you want to talk about? What do you think are the issues that need to be brought up that American voters, like you said, independents, GOP, and maybe even Democratic voters who are looking for a different leader, what do you think they need to hear?
Another 10,000 folks have come into the country illegally today. Another $1 billion is being added to the national debt. Another neighborhood has become less safe. American families are struggling, all the while that the Chinese government is getting stronger. These are the issues that people want to hear about. Folks want to know is, how do we prevent and fix this problem of 5.5 million people coming into our country illegally? How do we fix the fact that fentanyl killed 109,000 Americans last year? How do we deal with a federal deficit that is growing our national debt? These are the things people want to know. Like, how do we prevent Ukraine from becoming a forever war? These are the types of topics that most Americans want to hear about. These are the questions I get asked. And if I was on the debate stage, I'd be articulating my vision for the future. And then also, I wouldn't have been afraid to criticize Donald Trump on why he's wrong on a lot of these reasons, and how some of the things he did have created the problems that we're dealing with today.
I know that you said you wouldn't support Donald Trump should he be the eventual Republican nominee. Is there anyone else there on that debate stage who you wouldn't pledge a support as well?
Look, my thing is this, right? Like, we have to let this process play out. Like, my goal is to support myself. My goal is to be able to pull the lever for me. And I think when the time comes to say who you're going to support, you got to look at the totality of what people have said and done. And look, there are some things that are really frustrating to me. And Vivek is talking about how 9/11, he's saying that 9/11 wasn't real. You have Ron DeSantis basically saying that there was an upside to slavery and not showing leadership and correcting some of the language that his Department of Education is putting out on how to teach slavery in our schools. Like, some of those things are really concerning, but let's see how things unfold. And hopefully I'm not going to be in that position because I'm definitely going to support Will Hurd.
Absolutely. And I do want to get your reaction from news that broke yesterday. Larry Elder is another contender who didn't make the debate stage, and he announced he intends to sue the RNC. What's your reaction to that?
Well, look, that's Larry's prerogative, but I don't think that anything's stopping the debate from happening, and so it's time to drive on. And hopefully, the RNC recognizes some of the errors, and that many of the polling firms understand now with a level of clarity of what needs to happen, and so to ensure that dark horse candidates are able to be successful.
Speaking of those dark horse candidates, other contenders have said that if someone doesn't make the debate stage, they should drop out. I know you said last night you aren't planning to end your campaign. What do you think of that?
Look, we're raising money. We're tied. Why would I drop out when in one of the most important states I'm tied with the former VP and someone who's probably spent $40 million in the race? And so we have resources. People are excited. Our supporters are upset that we're the difficulties that we've had to deal with, but folks are excited about the future. So, but I will say, I think Governor Sununu said it over the summer, that when it starts coming to winter and late winter, that if there's not a clear pathway to victory, then we need to start thinking about consolidating. I think that's logical. I think that makes sense in order to ensure that the GOP has a nominee that can win in November. And so that's a calculation that I subscribe to.
And what is your pathway to victory here? Because obviously, as we all know, for anyone who views debates or has Twitter or an X platform, debates are a moment for candidates to shine or not. It's a make or break moment for them. So what's your pathway to victory?
Yeah, but it's not the only thing, right? Like, I've asked people, how many debates happened in 2016? Who was on the debate stage, right? Like these are things that, guess what? The media on Thursday is not going to be talking about the debate. They're going to be talking about Donald Trump in Georgia, and so it's a moment. It's just a moment in time, and the way you win campaigns is real simple. It's the same way a black Republican won in a 72% Latino district on the border between Texas and Mexico. It's know who your voters are and turn them out. It's that simple. I know how many votes we need in a place like New Hampshire, Iowa, Nevada, South Carolina, and we know how many voters that we need to get in order to win. We know where they are, we know what they care about, and we're going to go talk to them. And we're going to talk to them about the issues that they care about. It's not rocket science. It's just hard. And I recognize the difficulty of the task, but this isn't the first time we've had to do something that's hard. And so our pathway is very simple. 2/3 of Americans think that a Joe Biden, Donald Trump rematch is a rematch from hell. And people don't want that. And so those are the folks that we have to be engaged. And to give some sense to your viewers, a couple of weeks ago I'm block walking in New Hampshire. And somebody asked me, is Donald Trump running for re-election? There's a lot of people that that aren't doom scrolling on social media or only consuming political news. These are people that are worried about putting food on their table or a roof over their head and making sure the people they love are healthy, happy, and safe. And so those are the folks that we're going to activate. And when you get closer to elections, things always tighten up. We know that Donald Trump has a core group, but there's more people that dislike him than don't, and it's a matter of inspiring and getting those folks out to pull the lever on primary election day.
Let's talk a little bit about those independent voters. A recent, I believe, Gallup poll had 49% of likely voters who could be independent. How do you turn those out specifically?
Sure. And you go in a place like, let's take that even more narrow. In a place like New Hampshire, 40% of the electorate are registered as unaffiliated, and these are people that will choose on election day which ballot they go into, and those are the folks that are sick and tired of everything that's going on. There's a reason that you only have 23% of Americans voting in primaries, is because they don't like what their options are. And so part of that is to actually talk to them. And that seems so basic, but they're viewing different things. They're not consuming social media the way others are. They're not watching ads on television. And so it's about finding them and engaging them. And that's part of why a startup organization like mine has been able to punch significantly higher above our weight with the least name ID and not as many resources, because we're hyper focused and hyper targeted on who our customers are and who our customers aren't. And that's kind of the secret sauce, if you will, and that's what we're going to continue to do, and that's why we've been able to be in this position, only haven't been in the race for 60 days.
And will you be tuning into the debate tonight, or is it just full steam ahead, next stop for your campaign?
I'm full steam ahead. I think we're watching. I think I'm doing something with some press later tonight that wants some of my reaction to that. But I'm out, raising money, doing media, talking to voters, and that's back to slapping backs and kissing babies.
Love it. Congressman Will Hurd, thank you so much for joining me.
Appreciate you.